Today, I would like to focus on how I can help you set more effective and achievable goals for the coming year. First, I'm going to start by saying that every year I like to kind of take a notebook that I'm going to use for tracking my to do lists. And in the very back, I like to kind of list out goals or things that I want to explore and focus on in the coming year. And what I like about this format is just like kind of first rewriting it and kind of focusing on like I have private practice here, I have finances, I have areas for growth, and just kind of like little subsets, right? Like including making YouTube videos is on here. This to me is like that kind of first step of just getting the ideas on paper. So I encourage you to maybe try just kind of writing in each area of your life. Like, what are some of the things that you think you might want to accomplish or that you might want to explore this year? So just start there, and this can be like the inspiration that then we draw from. So then the second piece that I like to look at, I have on my little list here, is the values that we hold and making sure that our goals are values driven. So values can be things like, valuing nature, valuing time spent with family, meaning and purpose, well-being, right? Like we can value all kinds of different things. The reason why I like to start with the values is because if our goals are values driven, they're more likely to be important to us and to take us where we want to go, right? Because if I make my priority for this coming year a goal about work, but it's not necessarily attached to a value that I have, I might not be as invested in it. Or accomplishing that goal might not really bring me any closer to what's really important to me. So there are some values exploration exercises available online, and therapy is also a good way to explore values if we're not really sure what they are. So start with the values when I'm really looking at this. And I have heard a really cool strategy from a writing podcast where they come up with a theme word for what they want to focus on each year. And I think mine for the 2024 was clarity. And so I had written that out on a piece of paper and kind of let that guide my goal drafting process. Then the second thing I like to do is to build off of prior progress. So let's look at what's already worked and what is already working. Where have you successfully implemented habits? This is a really good thing because what works for one person might not work for another. And I think it's important to recognize where we have made progress. You're here, you're alive, right? So something has worked. So maybe looking at that and seeing, okay, what can I learn about myself and how I make progress from these past successes? And then how can I apply those to my goals moving forward? Also, part of this is learning from what has worked as well as what hasn't worked. I think it's really great to kind of look critically and compassionately at things that we have failed or that have not worked for us in some way, and really ask ourselves, like, what happened here? What led to this outcome? Can I really make it step by step here? Is it that like I had a goal of working out in the morning, and the problem with this goal is that it conflicts with my need for sleep. It conflicts with needing to get the kids to school. It conflicts with, A, B, and C. It's not my value. That's my top priority right now. It's really good to kind of look at that because we want to set ourselves up for success. We don't want to like continue the same conditions that have led to that goal not being realized. Sometimes too, we just need more resources and we need more support. Or we need to make the goal like a little smaller. So for example, I had a goal of writing a second novel because I had written a novel and I had, gotten tired of revising it and editing it and shelved it. And so I had a goal of writing a second novel, but that goal was not in line with the structure of my life right now. It was just not going to be possible. But when I looked at, okay, how am I writing? Like, what kind of writing am I getting done? I was finishing poems because they're small. I can do them in less time. I don't have to plan. I don't have to organize a whole plot, all these characters. And I realized I had been not valuing my poetry as much as I had been valuing the idea of a novel. And so I had this really cool kind of mental shift being like, oh, you know what? My poetry is of value to me. And I can appreciate it. And it does fit in with my life structure a little bit better now than working on a bigger project. So to me, that's an example of where I was like, okay, what has worked for me is smaller projects, things that don't require a lot of like that follow through, that focus and organization, that have less of that like mental load involved. And you can just kind of do it. So that's one example of how I've applied it. I also have on here to workshop for feedback, because often I'll speak for myself. I might not recognize things that will help me achieve my goals, or I might not recognize things that aren't contributing to my well-being. So I'll ask my loved ones and my trusted people, hey, what do you think about this goal? Or, hey, what do you think about this problem that I'm trying to problem solve? Like, do you have any ideas? Like, what have you noticed in me? Like, what do you think about this? Because they see things that I don't, right? And then I can, if I'm in an open-minded place, I can recognize their feedback and use it to have goals that will probably make a bigger impact for me. I also have on here just 3 more things, and then I'll give an example. I have on here the importance of prioritizing and keeping the goals simple. Some of the goals, I made them overly complicated, and then, it loses some of the fun, some of the spark, some of that spontaneity that can help. And so things that are really simple, like write when I can, write from the heart, versus from the head. Things like that can be more powerful to me than when I have this really complex goal with writing, which was like, genre related, and like, look at pacing, look at character development, look at dialogue, look at story arcs. When honestly, I write better when I write organically and when I'm not writing to publish anyways. So I think sometimes it's really good to see, okay, get all the specifics out and then go, all right, where can I simplify? And what can I just make it like a little less overwhelming, right? Okay, so I also have here something, this is really important. I think this is the number one reason why we don't reach our goals. And this is that we haven't identified the barriers and what is blocking us to make progress. Because there's a reason why we haven't realized this goal already, right? Sometimes many reasons. And it's really good if we can write down what those reasons are, that we haven't taken action on this goal already, that we haven't met it already. Or even speculate, right? Like, what steps have kind of led me to not taking action on this? That can be a really, really good place to start when we're looking at how we're going to follow through towards our goal. For example, when I wanted to write a second novel, why I hadn't done it already, I didn't have the time. I did not have the time, and I also didn't have the energy, like with working and parenting and trying to take care of my self-care. And I didn't have the mental load, like space left to plan a novel. Novels are these big, complex things, and you have to manage all these characters and all this stuff in your head. And so when I realized, those are the barriers why I haven't achieved this goal yet, of writing a second novel, it made me realize, okay, what I need to do is I need to work towards a goal that doesn't have as much mental load. I need to work towards a goal that I can do in small pieces of time, that doesn't require as much organization. And that's where like that writing poetry or like short stories, if it makes sense from that perspective, it's setting me up for success versus like me taking on something else that's going to be really complex, require a lot of like consistent investment. Okay. And then the last piece here that I have is to plan if and then to go along with your goal. So for example, if you've identified a barrier is like you want to quit smoking, you can say like, if I start having cravings to smoke, then I will, and you have like a list of alternatives. This sounds simple, but it's actually good to write it out, because when we write it out, we can put it wherever we're likely to have the problem. So like for example, if someone wanted to work on brushing their teeth, but they really hated it, I would say write down like what you're going to do to work through that and put it on your mirror where you brush your teeth, right? Because then you're going to see the skills, see the plan, where you can use it easily. Okay, now that's kind of my rundown. I'm going to go through an example, and this is something that I'm committing to, and I invite you to commit to it too if you would like to. So I have chosen to work on reducing social media. And I know this is ironic because I'm recording this video for YouTube, but specifically reducing scrolling on like Facebook or Instagram. And so I'll show you how I applied these concepts here. So the first one is, why is this important to me? Okay, so what about reducing social media time is important to me? One, from a well-being perspective, like objectively, I know that spending more time scrolling is not healthy for me. Two, like in terms of being present, and having that clarity, I know that social media withdraws me, goes and like takes me into that kind of inner world. But it's not just purely my inner world, it's an inner world that's like constructed for me, right? So that has some impact on my well-being too. And yeah, if I want to be more present, maybe it would help to reduce the social media. So the next question is, how important is it to me? And this helps identify that motivation for it, right? And if it's truly a priority for me. And I would say it is pretty important to me because I don't have a lot of free time, right? And how I use my time, I really want it to enrich my life. Maybe that can be my phrase for this coming year, enrichment. I kind of like the sound of that. And then I have here, why haven't I done this already? Well, why haven't I cut back on social media already? One, because it's addictive, right? So I know that it's really easy to go on the phone in those moments, right? Those stressful, like kind of in between times when you don't have enough time to do something you really want to do. And it's so easy to just tap it open on the phone. So there's like a low barrier there to using it. So when I think about how that helps me with planning the goal, it was one, deleting the apps off my phone. So it makes it just one step a little harder to use it. Two, looking at how I manage my stress in those little bits of time that are hard to find something else to do in. And I was thinking, something I can do is I'm going to create a list of things like I like, the National Geographic, or I like, humor websites, or, I like nature, I like reading things. So kind of having like a list of activities that I can do in those small little pieces of time, and having that handy so that it's not like the knee-jerk reaction, like you reach for the social media and just continue the same cycle. Okay, now I have here the triggers and the consequences. So this isn't something that I had necessarily put on here, but I think this is an important piece. This is a cognitive behavioral idea, right? Where we look at the triggers that lead to the behavior, and then we look at the consequences of it. So the triggers to use social media, and I'm going to speak generally here, I think these are usually things like feeling stressed, feeling isolated, wanting to check out, wanting to unwind, wanting to relax, also wanting to know what's going on in the world, wanting to see what other people are doing. These are all kind of triggers to like opening up that social media app, wanting to connect with other people. So what are some of the consequences of the social media use? Well, sometimes it is hard to stop once we've started scrolling, right? So it can take up too much time. Others, it can actually worsen like depression and anxiety. It can worsen that like comparison we have between ourselves and others. I would say it can make us feel connected even when we're actually disconnected, would be a consequence. Also, like it can affect negatively the people around us when they see us scrolling, instead of interacting with them. And it can make us less present, right? Like less physically present. Because how often have you been scrolling on your phone and then gone, oh my goodness, like it's so late. Where did the time go, right? Or I'm, sitting on the train and now I haven't seen out the window. I don't know how we got from point A to point B. That kind of thing. And, this is our life, right? So how we want to spend it, like to be kind of mindful of that. And then this can lead to alternatives and kind of this planning, right? This kind of if then. So like if I'm having the urge to open the social media app, then I will like log into, National Geographic, or I'll send a message to my friend, or I will open up a podcast instead, or review like my favorite photos of memories. So that's just kind of one like little example. There are a lot of different ways to set goals and to work with goals. And in therapy, I really love working with people on identifying their own goals and kind of problem solving around them. But I hope that some of this was helpful for you today. I wish you luck in kind of an honest review of your life and a compassionate one and seeing, what has worked well, What would you like to change moving forward? And if this was helpful for you in any way, please feel free to like, share it, subscribe, and thank you for listening.